Welcome back to Tales Arcane, where we talk about D&D, TTRPGs, and fantasy storytelling. If you want to create better guards and city watches for your games, then I think I can help. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips to create unique guard forces that are memorable, immersive, and fun for players to interact with. By the way, this channel is made possible by the wonderful people who back me over on Patreon. When you join the Tales Arcane Patreon, you can get access to more than 1,000 pages of my homebrew D&D content, including encounters, adventures, campaign settings, battle maps, and a lot more. There's a link down below this video if you're interested, but now let's talk about the 5 steps for creating better guards in D&D. The goal here is to create a guard force that is unique and memorable, instead of just cloning the guards from the previous town the players passed through. To that end, we want the guard force to reflect the specific town that they're meant to protect. For example, let's imagine we have a town where there's a large wizarding university. That means that many people in the population are going to be trainee wizards with a lot of dangerous arcane abilities. The guard force will need to be equipped for that. Your standard city guard might be able to cast basic cantrips. Officers would want to be spellcasters at a slightly higher level, and all members of the watch would probably wear armor that negates common damage types used in spells, things like fire damage. Alternatively, imagine a city in which a powerful religious order has taken control. Instead of having regular guards on the streets, we have platoons of heavily armed priests and clerics, their patrols wreathed in incense. You want the players to be able to look at the guards and then infer something from them about the city that's around them. This also works for less fantastical, unusual cities. For example, a standard industrial city with a lot of discontented workers, where riots and protests regularly break out, might have a guard force which is always ready for riots. They always carry heavy reinforced shields and masks. They have a large undercover unit that's always operating among the population. Alternatively, if the city is by the coast, you might have a guard force that is aesthetically themed around the ocean. Maybe instead of truncheons and handcuffs, they carry tridents and nets. When you make the guards a unique reflection of the city, you give the players the sense that both the guards and the city are unlike anything they've encountered before, and you'll also have a lot more fun running them because you're not just retreading old ground. Just as the guard force as a whole can reflect the entire city, so too can guards in individual areas reflect the districts where they work. Remember, a guard patrolling the affluent, leafy suburbs is going to have a very different experience and outlook to someone working in the crime-infested docklands. I always try to divide my cities up into a couple of different districts, so start by doing that, and then ask yourself what the guards are going to be like in each district. To try and get a sense of that, you can ask a couple of different questions. For example, how is the guard in a particular district going to approach outsiders and strangers to the town? Likewise, how likely are they to take bribes? And perhaps most importantly, how seasoned are they in combat? How often do they have to actually engage in battle? Let's imagine a guard who regularly works in an upper class area of the city where crime rates are low and most of the locals are very wealthy. He's probably not going to be very combat experienced. He's probably going to be a relatively easy target to take on in combat, but he's also going to be quite hostile and suspicious towards people he perceives as outsiders, people he thinks don't belong in that area. He's also not going to take bribes from someone who looks like they don't belong in that area, who looks like they might be poorer. But if he meets someone who is a bit more wealthy, who is visibly, ostentatiously wealthy, perhaps a noble or a powerful merchant, he's going to be much happier taking a bribe from them. Then at the other end of the spectrum, we might have a guard who usually works around the canal district, where there's a lot of people from outside of the city, crime rates are higher, perhaps gangs are often clashing in the streets. That guard is going to be far more seasoned in combat and a much tougher guard for players to take on in battle. He might also be more open to taking bribes, but perhaps is also less suspicious of outsiders. He sees people coming and going on the canals every day and has less prejudice than someone who works in one of the more affluent areas. Now, when players encounter a guard, they not only find out something about the city as a whole, but something about the district that they are in at the moment. It's a great way to highlight the discrepancies between different social groups and areas within the city, and a great way to show rather than tell the players that some people in this town have it better than others. Now we want to give your guard force a cool name, and as a rule we want to steer away from things like the City Watch or the City Guard, kind of basic names that don't tell us much about them. Instead, we want a name that is both memorable and unique, and also gives us a little bit of a sense about who these people are and maybe some of their lore. A very easy hack for this is to take two words that are descriptive of or associated with the guard force and mush them together. Imagine that the guards all carry long swords and serve the local baron. They're the Baron Blades. It's already a little bit more interesting and evocative than the City Watch. One of the most popular examples of this kind of naming is the Gold Cloaks from Game of Thrones. And the cool thing about that is that it's a very simple name, Gold Cloaks, but not only is it visually striking, it gives us a little bit of a sense of the decadence and wealth in King's Landing, the city in which the Gold Cloaks are at work. And that's what the best names do. They are not particularly jarring or unusual, but they just give you a little bit of a sense that there's a lore and a background to these guards. They didn't just pop into existence the moment the players committed a crime. As an alternative, instead of having the name reference something visually striking about the guards, you might have it be a reference to their history. For example, in one of my campaign settings, Valwind Heights, the local guards are called the Iron Eyes, and that's a reference to the fact that they started out as a spy network, just referred to as the Eyes. Then over time, a portion of that spy network became more active in enforcing the law, and they were referred to as the Iron Eyes because they carried metal weapons, and then that evolved just into a standard police force known as the Iron Eyes. So when the players hear that the first time, they might just think it's a cool name, but if they dig a little deeper, they get to learn something about the history of this organization. Taking this approach to naming is obviously good because it makes the guard force stand out from all the other law enforcement organizations that the players encounter in all the other towns. It makes it feel just a bit more easy to keep track of and remember. But it also adds to that sense that this town, its people, its guards were here before the players showed up. They had their own lore and history before the players rolled in, and all that stuff will continue on after the players leave. The next 2 points I want to cover are A, how to create a structured hierarchy within your city guard force, which is going to be very useful once the players start coming into direct contact with that guard force and possibly end up on the wrong side of the law. And B, what to do if the players go off the rails and start killing guards right, left and centre. Essentially, how to bring in consequences when the players go full murder hobo in the middle of a city. But first, let's talk about today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Describe, a digital platform for GMs. Describe's signature feature is their text library. They have more than 10,000 pieces of flavor text that you can read out at your table to add drama and detail to any scene. Just search a few relevant keywords, find a piece of text that works for your scene and bring it to your table. They have a team of talented writers and the text library is always expanding. But Describe's other great feature is their Opus system, which allows you to add immersive TTRPG music to your games. You can browse a massive library of music, ambience and sound effects and then layer together different tracks. If you run your games online, you just send a link to your players and they connect through the browser, listening in real time. It's amazing how happy my players get when they cast a spell and then they hear an appropriate sound effect for that spell right away. If you want to try Describe and Opus for yourself, just head to the link below this video and use the coupon code TalesArcane, all caps, all one word, to get an extended 3-week free trial. Thank you to Describe for sponsoring this video. Now let's keep talking about guards. In a village or a small town, it will probably work just to have a few guards and one captain of the guard, one watchmaster, but that's not really how it would be in a larger city with a much larger population. To create the structure for that guard force, we're once again going to make sure that our city is broken up into a couple of distinct districts, and then in each district we're going to place one guard headquarters, a watch house, a guard house, a police station essentially, and there's going to be one of these in each district, and this is the kind of command center for the watch in that area. Operating out of that guardhouse and working across that specific district, we're going to have a battalion of guards, and I usually have a battalion of about 20 guards. I have 20 guards, 4 officers and 1 captain who oversees the entire district. Your basic guard is going to be walking around on their own or in a pair patrolling the streets, but if a larger disruption breaks out, maybe a bar fight with your players at the centre of it, they can expect about 6 people to show up, 5 basic guards led by an officer, and then the district captain will be back at the base managing things from there. The captains of each district answer to whoever is in charge of the watch as a whole. This is your Lord Commander, your Watchmaster, your Police Commissioner, essentially. And this is an important NPC to develop because the kind of character that they are is going to affect the guard force as a whole and the city as a whole. For example, if they are a corrupt, heavy-handed thug, then they might be coming into conflict with the players, and you're probably going to see a lot more corruption and crime running through the city. But if they're an idealistic newcomer who's just taken on the role and wants to clean up the streets, then he might end up hiring the players to come and help out with some problems that the force is too corrupt to deal with. Either way, that is your guard structure. You have a watchmaster, a lord commander figure at the top who runs the entire guard force. Under them you have a number of captains, each overseeing one of the city districts. Under them you have 4 officers each, and under those 4 officers you have 20 guards or thereabouts, essentially creating 4 groups of 5. Of course, if the 20 guards in one district aren't enough to contain the problem that's arising, maybe the players are all pretty high level and have a thirst for blood and are killing guards right, left and centre, well, in that case the guards might call for assistance from a neighbouring district, and after a certain number of rounds the reinforcements might arrive, but that wouldn't be an instant thing. You wouldn't have all the guards in the city dogpiling one location right away. And what happens if all the guards in the city aren't enough to take down players? What if the players are high-level spellcasters who are just wiping their way through the guards with no problem? Well, in that case, we come to step 5, the elite force. The final step of the process is to create the elite response unit. These are the people who are going to be deployed if things get completely out of hand on the streets. These are going to be high-level professional fighters and mages who are going to come in to contain the characters if they are just killing too many guards. Think about the world in which D&D takes place. You have powerful magic users, drunken barbarians roaming the streets. You have monsters that can transform into humanoid forms and easily infiltrate cities. Any large urban centre worth its salt is going to have some kind of capacity to deal with these high-level threats. I would have a team of around 10 individuals, for the most part high-level fighters, with a couple of powerful sorcerers or wizards. These are the people who are coming in to remind your players that actions have consequences, whatever level you happen to be. And they're going to come in not necessarily to kill the players, but either to knock them unconscious and arrest them, or force them to flee. Ideally, you want to introduce that elite unit long before the players ever come into conflict with them. For example, the players might arrive in a new town and see a fight break out between some wizards. They're throwing fireballs at each other with no regard for the civilians nearby, and then a moment later that elite unit deploys. The players see these high-level professionals expertly take down the wizards, drag them away, and now the players know that later on, this is what happens if they create problems that the standard guards can't handle. Let's quickly recap what we've covered here. Step 1, create a guard force that is unique to the town, something that is shaped and formed by the environment and the circumstances that the guard force is operating in, rather than just copying and pasting a standard city watch from every other town. This is great because it will tell your players something about the town, it will make the town itself feel more unique, and it will also give the players a sense of variety. They're not just going up against the same old people. With step 2, we want to make sure that guards in different districts of the town feel distinct and unique for those districts. The guard force as a whole might tell you something about the whole town, but when you meet a guard individually, you can tell what district they're from and learn something about that district by how competent they are at fighting, how willing they are to take bribes, how they approach outsiders, and so on. In step 3, we want to get rid of all the generic names like the City Watch or the Guards, and instead give the guard force a name that tells us something about this guard force, that tells us something about the city and the lore of the guards that defend it. This is going to make the guard force feel more unique and memorable for the players, and is also going to just give this whole city a more distinct feel from all the other urban centres in your world. With step 4, we want to create a clear hierarchy within the guard force, so you know what kind of guards are going to be deployed depending on what the players are doing, and what sort of numbers of guards are going to be deployed in each area. And then finally, step 5, we create an elite guard unit that comes out to play when the players are causing too much trouble. The players are killing too many guards. That's when the elite response unit deploys and drags them all off to jail for a thrilling jailbreak sequence. And that is the video. Thank you for watching. Thank you to everyone who backs me over on Patreon, and a massive thank you to Describe for sponsoring this video. If you want to make use of that free trial on Describe, you can head to the link below this video, use the coupon code TalesArcane, all one word, all caps, and get an extra week on your free trial. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.